The classical era. This is where legends are born, and most players today have never experienced the pure magic of these original games. The classical era spans 2003 to 2007 when Infinity Ward launched the original Call of Duty and established the foundational DNA that would define the entire franchise for the next 2 decades. These games introduced PC-focused, squad-based gameplay rooted in World War II settings that completely deviated from the lone wolf formula dominating games at the time. Call of Duty wasn't about being a superhuman soldier who could take on entire armies single-handedly. It was about being part of something bigger than yourself, fighting alongside teammates who actually mattered to your survival. The original Call of Duty revolutionized the genre by making you feel like a regular soldier in extraordinary circumstances rather than an unstoppable killing machine. Call of Duty 2 and Call of Duty 3 expanded this formula with multiple campaigns and perspectives, allowing players to experience the war through American, British, and Soviet eyes simultaneously, creating a comprehensive view of global conflict that no other game had attempted. These games emphasized ally AI that actually contributed to firefights, cover-based gameplay that felt tactical rather than arcade-like, and large-scale historical battles that made you feel like a small but important part of massive conflicts spanning continents. The classical era established Call of Duty's reputation for immersive single-player storytelling that treated historical events with respect and created emotional connections to fictional characters fighting real battles. Multiplayer during this period was straightforward and skill-based, focusing on boots-on-the-ground combat without gimmicks or power-ups that could upset careful positioning and tactical teamwork. Key features like iron sights that forced players to aim carefully, shell-shock effects that simulated the disorientation of combat, and squad mechanics that rewarded cooperation were absolutely revolutionary at the time. These innovations justified the franchise's claim as a genre-defining experience in the increasingly crowded FPS market dominated by games like Quake and Unreal Tournament. Just as Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan redefined war films by focusing on individual soldiers within larger conflicts, Call of Duty's classical era set a new benchmark for interactive war stories that treated players as participants rather than observers. But this grounded foundation was about to explode into something that would create the most legendary period in gaming history, the Golden Age. The Golden Age, spanning 2007 to 2011, represents the absolute peak of Call of Duty when everything came together perfectly to create gaming magic that has never been replicated. This era began with the monumental launch of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which moved the series from World War II into modern conflict, and introduced elements that would define gaming culture for the next decade. Modern Warfare brought iconic characters like Soap MacTavish and Captain Price, who became household names, killstreak rewards that turned individual matches into escalating power fantasies, perks that allowed tactical customization of playstyles, and prestige leveling that kept players grinding long after reaching max level. The shift to Modern Warfare allowed for more varied weapons, equipment, and scenarios while maintaining the tactical gameplay that made the series special, creating a perfect balance between accessibility and depth that attracted both hardcore and casual players. World at War continued this momentum by returning to World War II with the new engine and mechanics, while introducing the legendary Zombies mode that created an entirely new gaming subculture with dedicated communities spending countless hours uncovering Easter eggs and surviving endless waves. Modern Warfare 2 reached the absolute pinnacle of the franchise with its controversial but unforgettable campaign featuring the airport massacre scene, and multiplayer that achieved perfect weapon balance, iconic maps like Rust and Terminal, and killstreaks that felt powerful but not game-breaking. Black Ops closed out this golden period with a mind-bending Cold War campaign featuring unreliable narrators and psychological manipulation, while delivering some of the most beloved multiplayer maps in franchise history, including Nuketown, Firing Range, and Summit. These 4 games consistently smashed sales records and critical reception, while creating a near-universal standard for multiplayer shooters that competitors struggled to match, with each release feeling like a cultural event that dominated gaming conversations for months. The Golden Age captured the imagination of millions through consistent quality that never disappointed, memorable campaigns that created water-cooler moments, and innovations that felt meaningful rather than gimmicky. Modern Warfare's campaign mixed stealth missions like the legendary All Gillied Up, explosive action sequences, and emotional storytelling that made players genuinely care about fictional conflicts and the fate of virtual comrades they'd fought alongside. The community's nostalgic appreciation for this era persists today through blogs, retrospectives, and player anecdotes that treat these games like sports dynasties, where every year was a championship game that delivered memorable moments. Prestige Mode created a culture of dedication and status where players proudly displayed their commitment through rank emblems and calling cards. while kill streaks added layers of strategic depth where individual performance could dramatically impact team success through rewards like airstrikes and helicopters. This golden period created a perfect storm of innovation, quality, and cultural timing that made Call of Duty the defining gaming experience of a generation. But even perfection couldn't last forever. The Silver Age. But even perfection couldn't last forever, and cracks began to show in this once flawless formula. The Silver Age, spanning 2011 to 2013, marked the beginning of the franchise's decline from its golden peak with Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 2, games that were still excellent but couldn't quite recapture the magic of their predecessors. Modern Warfare 3 attempted to conclude the Modern Warfare trilogy with epic set pieces and familiar characters, but many fans felt it played too safely, recycling mechanics and map designs without bringing meaningful innovation to justify its existence as a separate release. The campaign, while competently executed, felt more like an expansion pack than a revolutionary new experience, and multiplayer introduced kill streaks that many considered overpowered and match-breaking, disrupting the careful balance that made MW2 legendary. Black Ops 2 represented a more successful entry in this period, attempting to modernize the formula with near-future settings, branching campaign narratives and league play that catered to the growing competitive scene, but it marked the beginning of the franchise's move away from its grounded military roots. The introduction of Pick-10 create-a-class systems and futuristic elements like drones and advanced technology signaled a shift toward the experimental direction that would define the next era, even though the core gameplay remained solid and familiar. Both games maintained high production values and delivered competent multiplayer experiences that satisfied existing fans, but they lacked the revolutionary impact and cultural significance of the Golden Age releases that preceded them. The Silver Age represented the franchise at a crossroads, where developers began experimenting with changes that would either revitalize the series or alienate longtime fans, setting the stage for the more dramatic departures that would follow. While these games were commercial successes and maintained the franchise's popularity, they marked the end of the period where each new Call of Duty release felt like a guaranteed masterpiece that would dominate gaming culture. The declining innovation and increasing reliance on established formulas suggested that major changes were needed to keep the franchise relevant in an evolving gaming landscape. But those changes would prove more controversial than anyone expected. The Jetpack era, launching the franchise into uncharted territory that divided fans like never before. The Jetpack era, spanning 2013 to 2016, marked the most dramatic departure from Call of Duty's roots, with Ghosts, Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, and Infinite Warfare fundamentally altering the series' identity through futuristic movement mechanics and sci-fi settings. This era began with Ghosts, which introduced larger maps and different gameplay mechanics, but truly exploded with Advanced Warfare's revolutionary exosuit system that allowed double jumping, wall climbing, boost dodging, and enhanced movement that completely transformed how Call of Duty played. Advanced Warfare's exosuits created an entirely new skill ceiling where players had to master three-dimensional movement while maintaining accuracy and map awareness, requiring constant attention to threats above, below, and around every corner, rather than traditional horizontal gameplay. The jetpack mechanics allowed for incredible mobility and verticality that made matches feel faster and more chaotic, with players bouncing around maps in ways that fundamentally changed how encounters played out and how map control worked. Black Ops 3 refined the movement system with wall running, thrust jumping, and cyber abilities that felt more integrated into the core gameplay, while adding specialist characters with unique weapons and abilities that shifted focus from pure gunplay to tactical ability usage. Infinite Warfare pushed the futuristic theme to its absolute extreme with zero-gravity combat, space battles, and movement mechanics that felt completely disconnected from anything resembling military simulation, featuring maps set on lunar colonies and asteroid mining facilities. The jetpack era created entirely new skill dynamics that rewarded quick reflexes and three-dimensional thinking over traditional map knowledge and positioning, bringing in players who enjoyed the faster, more arcade-like gameplay while alienating longtime fans who preferred tactical, grounded combat. These games showcased impressive technical achievements in animation, graphics, and innovative movement systems that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in multiplayer shooters, demonstrating the developers' willingness to take creative risks and experiment with established formulas. However, the reception was deeply polarizing, with many players feeling that the jetpack mechanics made the games feel more like science fiction arena shooters than Call of Duty, leading to some of the most negative community reactions in franchise history. The era's emphasis on vertical movement and futuristic technology created a completely different game that required players to relearn fundamental skills, making longtime fans feel like outsiders in their own franchise. But the experimentation was far from over, as developers doubled down on controversial changes. The loot box era, as developers doubled down on controversial changes that would define the industry's worst practices. The loot box era, spanning 2016 to 2019, built upon the jetpack mechanics while introducing aggressive monetization systems that fundamentally changed the relationship between players and the franchise. This period encompassed the later jetpack games like Infinite Warfare, the return to boots on the ground with Dutch Oui, and the experimental Black Ops 4, all unified by controversial loot box systems that locked weapons, cosmetics, and progression behind randomized purchases. Infinite Warfare became the poster child for everything wrong with this era, combining the most extreme futuristic elements with supply drops that contained gameplay-affecting weapons only obtainable through random chance or excessive grinding, creating pay-to-win scenarios that destroyed competitive balance. The loot box system meant that players could spend hundreds of dollars and still not receive the weapons they wanted, while others might get powerful equipment immediately, creating an unfair advantage system that prioritized spending over skill development or time investment. WW2 attempted to return to the franchise's historical roots, but maintained the predatory monetization that had become standard, creating a jarring disconnect between authentic World War II presentation and modern gambling mechanics that felt inappropriate for the subject matter. Black Ops 4 eliminated the traditional single-player campaign entirely in favor of Battle Royale mode, Blackout, and expanded multiplayer, while implementing the most aggressive loot box system yet that locked fan-favorite weapons behind limited-time events and random drops. The term loot box era reflects how these monetization strategies overshadowed gameplay improvements and innovations, with players spending more time and mental energy on obtaining content than actually enjoying the games themselves. Community backlash reached unprecedented levels during this period, with players organizing boycotts, creating petitions, and generating massive negative publicity that forced industry-wide conversations about gambling mechanics in video games. The era demonstrated how successful gameplay innovations could be completely undermined by greedy monetization practices that exploited psychological vulnerabilities and transformed entertainment products into gambling platforms targeting young players. Legislative bodies in multiple countries began investigating loot boxes as potential gambling, leading to regulatory discussions that would eventually force the industry to reconsider these predatory practices. The combination of controversial gameplay changes and exploitative monetization created a perfect storm of fan anger that threatened the franchise's long-term viability and reputation. Something had to change, and change was coming fast. The Reboot era / the Warzone era, with a complete course correction that would save the franchise. The Reboot era, spanning 2019 to 2023, began when developers recognized the urgent need for renewal and launched Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, returning to realistic boots-on-the-ground gameplay while completely eliminating loot boxes and jetpack mechanics that had alienated the core fanbase. This era brought tactical gunplay back to the forefront with weapon handling that felt weighty and authentic, introduced a completely new engine that made everything look and feel more realistic than ever before, adopted a more serious narrative tone that dealt with contemporary geopolitical issues, and implemented crossplay for the first time in franchise history. The new seasonal content model replaced both paid map packs and loot boxes with free updates delivered regularly, fostering a united, ever-expanding community that could play together regardless of platform or economic status, eliminating the fragmentation and pay-to-win mechanics that had plagued previous entries. Modern Warfare 2019's campaign tackled controversial topics like civilian casualties, chemical weapons, and the moral ambiguity of modern warfare with a maturity that the series had never attempted before, creating conversations about real-world conflicts while maintaining respect for sensitive subject matter. This era's defining innovation was Warzone, a free-to-play battle royale experience released in March 2020 that achieved rapid growth and created an intense competitive structure unlike anything the franchise had attempted before, launching just as the global pandemic increased demand for online entertainment. Warzone's integration across Black Ops Cold War, Vanguard, and later titles created a shared digital arena for millions worldwide, featuring innovative mechanics like the Gulag respawn system that gave eliminated players a chance to fight their way back into matches, loadout drops that allowed customization within the Battle Royale format, and massive maps like Verdansk and Caldera that provided diverse environments for different playstyles. Going from the chaos of futuristic jetpacks and predatory loot boxes to the tension of realistic combat and fair progression systems felt like coming home for many fans, with innovation focused on gameplay refinement and quality-of-life improvements rather than monetization schemes that fundamentally altered the series' identity. Warzone achieved over 100 million downloads by April 2021, proving that Call of Duty could successfully compete with established battle royales like Fortnite and Apex Legends while maintaining its unique identity and bringing something new to the crowded genre without exploiting players financially. The Reboot era successfully restored fan confidence and demonstrated that the franchise could evolve and innovate without abandoning its core principles or resorting to predatory business practices that damaged the player experience. But even this successful era was about to face its biggest change yet, the Microsoft era, with corporate restructuring that would reshape the entire gaming landscape. The Microsoft era began in October 2023, when Microsoft completed its massive $68.7 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard, bringing Call of Duty under the Game Pass subscription model and promising a unified ecosystem for all future releases that could fundamentally change how players access and experience the franchise. This latest era is still actively unfolding, with new developments occurring regularly, but Black Ops 6 debuted with Day 1 Game Pass integration in October 2024, setting completely new expectations for how AAA shooters can be distributed, monetized, and accessed by players worldwide without traditional purchasing barriers. The acquisition marks a monumental milestone for distribution methods that prioritize accessibility over individual sales, cross-platform synergy that connects Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and mobile ecosystems, and cloud gaming integration that could fundamentally change how major games reach players across different devices and economic circumstances. For players, this transformation means easier access through subscription services rather than expensive individual purchases, potential gameplay innovation freed from traditional sales pressure and quarterly revenue targets, and shifts in development priorities toward long-term player engagement and retention rather than generating massive sales spikes through annual releases. Game Pass integration provides instant access for millions of existing subscribers who can now play Call of Duty without additional cost, cross-platform cloud saves that maintain progress across devices seamlessly, and community integration that connects players regardless of how they access the games or what platform they prefer. The subscription model could also enable more experimental content and game modes, since developers aren't pressured to create mass-market appeal for individual purchases, potentially leading to more diverse content that serves different segments of the player base without the financial risks that previously limited creative freedom. With Microsoft now controlling the franchise and its development resources, we could realistically see Call of Duty become as universal and accessible as established Microsoft properties like Minecraft or Halo, expanding into new genres, formats, or even virtual reality experiences that were previously impossible due to financial constraints or technical limitations. The possibilities include revolutionary new content models that prioritize long-term player satisfaction over initial sales figures, expanded cross-play functionality that includes mobile and cloud gaming platforms, and maybe even experimental formats like VR integration, mobile spin-offs, or entirely new game modes that wouldn't have been financially viable under the traditional publishing model. This era represents the ultimate evolution from a simple World War II shooter released on PC to a massive entertainment platform that could define gaming culture for decades to come. With the financial resources and technological vision to push boundaries that seemed completely impossible just a few years ago.